Get ready. It's time for a Sermon Sketchnotes Community Member Spotlight with your host, Raven Henderson. Recorded live in front of a Facebook audience. This is your group, and we're about to meet yet another awesome person in our family. Community Member Spotlight starts now.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Sermon Sketchnotes Community Spotlight. Today we're going to get to meet Ross. Hey Ross.
Hi Raven.
Cool. Where are you? Gotta let everybody know where you're at. So we can.
The southeast. I'm in Atlanta, just a little bit above where you are.
Yep, that's right. Y'all don't know, Ross and I are buddies. I've met him in real life before.
We're legit real life friends.
Yeah. So, I got to pull up some of Ross's work. Y'all bear with me. Had a little bit of technical difficulties getting started, but I want to show you some of Ross's sketch notes that he's done in church. And if you can share with us, Ross, a little bit. Oh, Constance is already here. What?
Hi. Another one we've met in person.
Yes.
My friend.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yes, we are your buddies. She's our buddy too.
Good to see you, Constance.
Cool. So I'm going to try to pull up some of your images, but while I'm getting some things set up, Ross, can you tell us how you got into sermon sketchnoting?
Yeah. Okay. So a few years ago, I was designing furniture for a company, and it was a really small company, and I got let go, and I started doing freelance illustration just because that was a service that people would pay me for. And then like a year and a half ago, William from the Sketch Effect, we had a mutual friend who introduced us. He was looking for more sketch note / graphic recording artists. And so I kind of interviewed, he trained me. And so I do that for the Sketch Effect, but to keep sharp, I just do it for sermons every week.
Sweet. Y'all, I'm still trying to pull these up, these images. But, well, first I've got to connect. I'm like trying to be all high tech here. I've got multiple computers that I'm working with.
Talk about some of the tools or something like that.
Yeah, like what's your process for taking notes in class?
Yeah.
In class, in church.
So bring my, here's my notebook. And then I pick one of the beautiful colors from my Tombow. I just bought a set of these online with a set of grays. So before I go, I pick out 3 markers. I pick a color marker, a gray for shadowing, and then one of these, the Identi-Pen for the thick. So here's the branding. The thick side or the other side has a thin side. And the good thing with these is that it's one of them is solvent-based and the other brand is water-based, or so that I can write with this and this one doesn't smear it. But the good thing is these two, any of the combos of the Tombow brushes will mix. So if I want to come up with a not as bold of a color, I just put a dash of this down there and use a gray to smear it together so it's kind of a mixture, like a lighter yellow or a lighter orange or whatever I'm using. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's cool. So it's kind of like, well, I can use Noylands as an example because we're both familiar with those. So it's like your Identi-Pen is kind of your outliner. And then, okay, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, they're the Noylands. Constance can recite the numbers for us because the girl is good like that.
Okay, so here's the equivalent. So we have the outliner, which is the black. You recognize that, Raven. And then an example of the colors. So this you put down first or afterwards, but then you can go right over the top with this one without it smearing. Same thing like this. Yeah. Noyland. Let's see. Did you ask me any questions I haven't answered yet?
No, but I'm really excited. I want to try out this Identipen combination with the Tombos. Can you do it with the color? Can you do it either way, like color first and then Identipen, or Identipen and then Tombow?
Yep, sure can. Yep, it works well that way. One weird thing I just discovered this weekend is even if the fat end of this has lots of ink, the small end can run out. So I ended up having to do my entire sketch notes this week with fat markers. It worked out okay, but I just had to be a lot more strategic. Is it all backwards?
No, it's right way.
Okay, good, because it's all backwards for me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
I guess I've seen it before.
what size paper is that, Pat?
Okay, so that was actually an issue. At first I got like 9 by 12. And the problem with that is that it doesn't fit in anything. Like if I wanted to put it in a plastic sleeve or laminated or put it in a folder, that's too big. Nice.
Nah, sorry, cell phone.
So this one is 8.5 by 11, which I learned is just a lot easier, and it fits great on this. I forgot to mention this. I take this usually, it's a clipboard. Put this on here, or like, fold it back, stick it on there. Got my markers, and that's what I show up at church with. Yep.
Sweet.
And the process. So do you want me to, start talking about the process of when the sermon starts and what I write?
Yeah, I feel like I need to be taking notes. Come on, tell me.
So luckily at the beginning of sermons, they usually have announcements or introductions. So that's a great time to do the title. And then about the time that they're done with announcements, the pastor goes up there and begins his message, which I know that tells me who's preaching for the day. If there's any doubt, so I can start the little portrait of them. And then usually right up front, they'll say, we'll be going along with like Mark 16, for example, today. So that's when I start writing their name and then the scripture citation, and usually do some sort of icon that represents the Bible or book behind it. And then, then I'll start listening. So as I'm finishing off these drawings, I'll be listening for the main point he's about to make. If there's like an introduction, I'll try to filter that away. And this is good because usually when they're introducing a message, they're kind of getting around to their first point. So it takes 5 minutes or something for them to usually get to it. And that gives me time to finish the title, the profile picture, the name, and the scripture drawings. And it usually...
So I got a question. Yeah. Is that something that you kind of notice the filtering away till they get to the first point, like their introduction? Because I notice you have different pastors. It's not the same one the whole time, but do you kind of feel that that's a normal thing no matter who's speaking?
Gosh, I guess the good thing is if I'm listening, if I listen for 5 minutes for a major point, or if I pick something up right away that I want to write, both usually works fine. So okay. I think over the past year and a half, I've just, I wish I could give you more practical detail for this, but it's just become more of an instinct with maybe different pastors or just the flow of sermons in general, where I feel like it'll just occur to me after doing it that long. Okay, that's a good point. Let's put that down. I think that just comes from practice and listening. But, when I did one of my first practice gigs with the sketch effect, I kind of shadowed William, and one of the biggest lessons I learned was sometimes, like when they start doing introduction type stuff, it makes sense to catch that stuff, because what happened with this one speaker, we were at Delta, and we were doing notes that this lady got up, and basically she started doing thank yous, like thank you to this person for flying into this conference, thank you for this person for showing up, thank you for the work you did last night with this, and I thought all that stuff was introduction stuff, but she went on for like half of her talk, probably 3/4 of her talk was that. So
wow.
somehow was smart enough to like start with all the thank yous, and that filled up 3/4 of the board for that talk. So I was like, when it really matters, when I'm like on a paid gig, a lot of times I'll start catching the like, welcome this person, or thanks for your work on this project, this person, because I realize I don't want to suddenly realize that half their talk is going to be thank yous, and I start the pattern of catching those thank yous and stuff. So a lot of times the first board that I'll do for the different companies will be, it'll have welcome at the top. And the last board a lot of times has a thank you for coming.
Oh.
So that doesn't give you a very black and white practical advice, bit of advice, because sometimes, yes, I listen for the first point for 5 minutes, and sometimes I dive right in. So,
well, we're still at the beginning of our talk, but we're already saying thank you, Ross. So I second Constance. Like, thank you for sharing that pro tip.
You bet.
Hey, I want to hear more about your sketchnoting process, especially for church, but just for a few minutes, can we talk about the sketch effect? Because I know me, you, and Constance have that connection, so other people may not know what we're talking about.
Oh, sorry. So the sketch effect is based out of Atlanta. William Warren used to work for Chick-fil-A and started doing sketch notes just as his internal personal sketchnoting technique, but it started becoming so valuable to the company and his own process, and people started asking him to come to their different meetings to do sketch notes, that eventually he realized he could make his own business out of it. And I think that was 4 or 5 years ago, and since then he's been building the brand, hiring on artists like Raven and Constance and me, and I think we have like 5 or 6 other artists across the nation. And a couple more here in Atlanta who work in the office. So yeah, he has like 6 or 7 office workers. They have an office by Piedmont Park in the center of Atlanta, and then like 8 total orbiting artists. That's like those of us who work from our houses and go to gigs when they send us to it, but we don't work in the office. Yeah, there we go. If people can see that. There's William. People can see that video. And this is an example of an interactive mural that we'll do. So we'll go, I think that might have been at a like a championship game down in Florida. Oh, there's Meg. She does a lot of project management stuff. But yeah, we'll do interactive murals where we'll interact with the audience, and they'll say, so like one of our clients has been Chick-fil-A, and they hire us to do an interactive mural and interview their consumers who come up and say, my favorite sandwich is this, my favorite activity is this, and we'll draw a little picture of them holding a sandwich and like playing baseball or something. Yeah, but our main stuff is like what she's doing right there in the video, is we'll go to conferences or like keynote talks, sometimes even meetings where there's an interactive element where they're trying to get advice or ideas from the employees or from the different attendees of the conference. So we'll do like a thing where it's more interactive between the talker, the speaker, and the audience, and we try to catch that in different forms. Yeah, and then Sketch Effect also now does those videos where it looks like I think whiteboard videos is kind of the name, the layman's term for those, but where you see a drawing unfolding in time with voiceover describing some sort of some company has hired the Sketch Effect to demonstrate some point, and the video does that with a voiceover to describe like the layout of the business model or something they want to describe to their customers or potential customers. Yeah, so there we go. That's it. There's Amber.
Sweet. Whiteboard animation. Yes, thank you, Constance.
Yes, cool.
Yeah, Constance is part of our Sketch Effects squad, and Joe Noggin Grogan, and Emily Carlton. She's an OG like you at Sketch Effect.
She's way before me. She is. I've learned so much from her.
But But yeah, there's a big part of Sketch Effect that also sketches in church as well. Like you say, a good practice session for us.
We have a lot of Christians in our company, which is really cool.
Cool. So yes, thank you for humoring me and doing that little aside on Sketch Effect. But I want to hear some more about your process, please, sir.
Okay, cool. Let's see. So yeah, if people can see that that's on the screen, I'll start pointing out some things. Okay, so I like to do a lot of images versus some people are really good at typography. I feel like the images are a little bit more impactful, especially if you do bigger ones, and they're more interesting to look at and they draw your eye pretty well. But I want to get better at typography because some of the people in our Sermon Sketchnotes community do just beautiful typography work with like beautiful scripty stuff. That's actually on my goals, my list of goals to learn this year, to learn to just do this really beautiful script, because I would love to use that as a Constance distracted me by saying by saying I'm a Jedi. I'm not. Let me see if I can pull out something that looks like a Jedi technique, like she asked though. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this is critical. This has been huge for me, this one. So you can see how several of mine go in a swirl shape. Starts at the top left, goes counterclockwise, and then ends in the middle. This is great because when it ends in the middle like that, if the sermon goes long or goes short, I just continue swirling in as far in as I need to. And this provides me like a buffer room, because if I only get to the top of the swirl, then I can fill the middle part in with a big picture, which is great. It usually looks great. I'd love that. Yeah, like that Jonah jumping into the mouth of the whale. But if they go long, then I just keep continuing winding in and filling that space with words, with topics and points and stuff. This is funny. So you can see the pictures. Oh, I want to talk about this one actually. Before I talk about the picture of the pastors. This is crazy. I forgot my notebook on this day. And during the service, I thought, well, let me try something. So I closed my eyes for most of the service, and I pictured myself drawing this, each part. And then I went home after the service just to see if it helped me remember, and it did. I went home and was and reproduced this graphic recording, or this sketch notes, from memory. So I bet all of you sketchnote artists out there can do this. Us who are visually oriented in the way we think and memorize, I'd be really curious to see if this works for you. If you're listening to a talk, visualize yourself drawing it, even just the motions of your hand, just about to that level of intricacy, and picturing what you'll draw where, and then reviewing in your mind the first point, the second point, the third point, and then maybe about that time the pastor does his fourth point. And then when you kind of draw that in your mind, then you go back to the first and review again, and use that as, yeah, right. It's, so Constance just said it's one of her favorites. Yeah, it's one of mine too. And this is partly why, because when I'm not drawing it in permanent marker, but instead drawing it in my head, by the time I get home, I have figured out what things I need to shift where, so that it will all fit better, and I can do the drawings better, because it's kind of cued in the cache of my memory, I guess. I never knew this was a thing, but then I can like rearrange them before I actually put it down in ink. So this might be a new method I need to like apply to more areas of my life. And I bet a lot of you folks out there who do sketch notes, this may help. This may be a Jedi technique that you already contain within you. You have the Force. Believe in it. Okay, back to the topic. I started with the profile pictures of the pastors. So on the top left, I've just made a habit of doing the picture of the pastor up there. One of the first comments that I got from my pastor when I had, oh yeah, let's stay on this image for a second. So Ashley is our pastor at our church. And one of the first things she told me when I said, hey, it's been great to do these sketch notes for you guys. Are they helpful or whatever? She's like, yeah, I always look to see if I look good. And so like, I mean, that's totally legit. I probably would too. And I just realized, you know what? That's probably what the speakers are, one of the first things they think about when they see their face up on one of our sketch notes. So I try to think about that and do them justice and remember that part of the service I'm providing is making the speaker feel validated and known and heard. One of the, to that point, one of my clients, basically, it was a 2-day gig where I was doing this big mural for a client here in Atlanta. And after the first day, they asked me to talk the audience through the images in the graphic recording that I had done, just as a review from the day before. And I went through the points that I had picked up from one of the talks at the beginning of the day before. And afterwards, I caught up with the speaker who had said that and said, did I get even close to what you were saying? You know, and she's like, you got it. And what it made me realize is that what I'm speaking is being communicated clearly enough that people are understanding it. So this is a way that we can kind of validate the speakers of the talks that we're listening to and say, like, I hear you and I'm translating what you're saying into words and images. Hopefully you feel heard and you feel understood. The power of sketch notes.
That's really cool, because one of my pastors said that too when I first started doing it in church. He was like, it really gives me an idea of what people are walking away with, because you know, they don't do pop quizzes like we're in school to see what did you absorb. But nope. Yeah, it was helpful for him. So yes, thank you, Constance, for all the messages. I'm enjoying the feedback. I don't know if you guys, Ross, but I am.
Yeah.
And I want to take this time to remind anybody that's watching the replay to, if you have a question or a comment for Ross, make sure you tag him when you're replying to, or when you're leaving a comment, so even after we're done being live, he can still see all of that. Cool. And oh, we have Paul. Paul's a good one to chime in here, because Paul is not only a sketchnoter but also a chaplain.
Oh, so I appreciate this. Yeah. Good.
Reinforcing the speaker and their message. That is great. I don't really think about that. All I think about when I do the picture of somebody is that if I'm ever in doubt, I know I can always make them skinnier and I can always add hair and they will be happy.
Yeah, that's so true. I had a experience where I had extra space on one of the graphic recording boards, and so extra time. So I started drawing caricatures of all the audience members. There was like 15 or something like that. And I got them all up there. And some lady at the end was like, oh, there I am. The fat one. Oh, sorry. No, I mean, let me retouch it. Really round-faced one or something like that. I'm like, oh, okay, now I know. You're right. You can always make them thinner and more hair.
Yes. So before we run out of time, I want to make sure we get to this. I want you to tell us about
some of your projects. Oops.
Some of your projects, specifically this one. Can you tell us what this is all about, your scripture doodles?
Yeah. Okay. So I had this idea to take a portion of scriptures which are familiar to longtime Christians and doing an illustration that has some layered meaning in it. And the reason I wanted to kind of attack it like this was that I wanted I wanted to be able to hang it up in like secular places, like where I just came from, and why I was almost late for the interview was I was hanging it up in a secular coffee shop here in Decatur, just right next to Atlanta. And so people who weren't raised in the church, maybe they just see poetry. They may not realize that it's a scripture verse. And then I try to take some images that reinforce the idea behind the scripture and hopefully pull out more layers of meaning. So this is one of the earlier drafts, which wasn't as successful. I ended up changing it because, like, for example, so created me a clean heart. I thought the idea that I wanted to go with was a heart, an old, dried up, gray heart being a cocoon from which a live butterfly hatched. But I got a lot of feedback on Facebook when I posted it as a draft, and they just didn't quite understand, which makes sense, didn't understand that the butterfly was supposed to be the main point, not the gray dead heart. Because I couldn't figure out a visual way to portray the butterfly in front and still be able to show it opening up like a cocoon.
Can I just say, I'm like really loud to myself in my headphones. But can I just say, I love, Ross, that you're really good at soliciting feedback and then applying it to your art. Because as your friend on Facebook, I do see these posts that you're talking about when you have the courage and willingness to put a draft out there and see how it's being received. Just very much like what you just said about how your sketch notes show the speaker how their message is being received. You ask for feedback from your audience and then adjust accordingly. So anyway, I just thank you for that example.
I think there's probably two sides to a coin on that. I've chosen to get feedback, especially because these can be interpreted so many different ways and there's so many layers and nuances of meaning. I just may not be in touch with my audience enough. But my brother's comment on these was like, hey, Ross, I think people just want art that they believe that there's something magic coming from the artist instead of being able to see all the like trials and failures of the process. So for some art, maybe that would be a better method. But I found for so this is the new one. This is the new created clean heart. So this is the one that used to be the cocoon. And I think this one works better, a little bit more, a little easier to decipher the meaning behind it. The water enlivens the bottom part of the heart, so like the more superficial layers actually start to bloom. All those things, people can't really see the transformation that's happening in our heart as God makes a clean heart. We still have the same outer image, but we start to bear fruit that looks a little bit like foliage on a tree. Oh, so if you want to go to the next one, I like that one. Yeah, okay, Salt and Light. This has been one of the most successful or the most well-received ones. And this one's in a frame, you can see, and that's because I get my art printed from Society 6, which is awesome. If there's any artists out there that just want to be able to submit their art and order it on framed prints, or like I have my cell phone case is one of my pieces. I think we might get to that later. And I got stickers. You can get stickers from them. They're really awesome. This is one of the other scripture images that we may get to. This one's good for Easter. Oh, death wears thy sting as a bee hidden in the skull. But the Salt and Light one and this one were the very first ones, and they've been probably the most well-received ones. And so the link that you put up before, the RAWSPOON /art, is where people can go if they want to check out how to buy my art, and that'll link you to the my Society 6 page. Yeah. Are you still there? Uh-oh. I think I lost Raven. Oh.
All right.
Hey.
I'm back.
Okay.
I should be back. Okay. Yes. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, don't want to, I want to make sure you're seeing all this feedback people are leaving.
Oh, I haven't seen it. Okay.
Okay. So like Constance was all about, yes, your public iteration process. That's a very succinct way of putting it. Thank you, Constance.
Yeah.
Like, I really appreciate that you do that. That's awesome, Ross.
Can I speak to that really quick again?
Yeah.
So I just went on this retreat, and hey, thanks, Paul. This retreat, the mission, it was like a business retreat where people workshop their business, and my main goal was to, how am I going to sell art? How am I going to sell that art better? And I think I need to work into my process figure out the demand of the market, because I can create a lot of ideas that I like, but I don't know what will sell. So I think as I'm creating art, I need to get better this year at polling, Polling, the market, and seeing what sort of stuff they want. Not just the stuff they like, but the stuff they would buy. Because some of my stuff, people like it, but there's no place to hang it in their house, or they wouldn't put a sticker of it on their laptop or whatever. So I need to really focus on those things that I love doing, but also the things that people want. So this little
that Venn diagram.
Yeah, the Venn diagram. Yeah. So yeah, that's that iteration process is going to be part of my marketing too, or I guess part of my figuring out ideas of what to create.
Cool. Oh, Monica just joined us too. Hi, Monica.
Yeah.
You can always watch the replay and you can see everything from the beginning, because Ross has been dropping all kinds of knowledge on us. I don't think he even realizes. And as far as the business side, Paul is right there along with you. See if I can get his post to show up. But he says it is a constant struggle. Man, I wish I could do an Australian accent so I can really represent Paul. But he says, yeah, he's in Melbourne. It's a constant struggle for the thriving artist, creating what we like or what people will buy. Yeah. Or as Ross says, finding that intersection in between what we like and what will people buy. There we go. And he suggests to learn in public, show the development of work to get people interested. And that's very much what you've been doing with this scripture project, is learning it in public.
Cool. Yeah, that is part of the idea. If I put a first draft out there, it enters their mind once. And then if I do a further draft, especially if they've given a idea or a critique, they're probably more engaged, and they're like, oh, I wonder if Ross incorporated my idea. So hopefully it is making the viewer more engaged.
Yeah, you're creating that sense of ownership as well.
Mm-hmm.
And racking up the social media engagement points to keep showing up in their feed.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So I want to hear, because we've got about 15 minutes left, about this Last Supper project. You and I have talked about it briefly, but I want to hear more and what you've done with it and the story behind it.
You bet. Okay. So it was a project. Oh, did I lose you? There it is. Okay, cool. Well done. So I just finished seminary, and one of my classes was an art elective, and we had to do an art project, and my old roommate suggested I do a project like this, reinterpret the Last Supper. So the idea behind this is taking all of the people that we pretty easily discount from Christianity because their doctrine seems a little bit wrong, or they seem to be stuck in destructive habits. So what we see here is there's a homeless man in the middle. We have kind of a gender-bending person just to the left of him, a cross-dressing alcoholic right next to that person. We have an immigrant from the story I created around that black dude, third from the end, is he's from Haiti. The McDonald's employee is giving him a soft serve ice cream cone because he overheard this guy say, "I've never had soft serve ice cream before." And then next to him is this skater who's got tattoos and a skateboard, and on the skateboard is, I think it says, "I've been made new." And it has a skull on there. Usually we're oh, it's too dark for church. But the idea is right underneath it is, I forgot what they call those plants. It's actually in Eastern religions a lot. The lotus where it's it symbols things being reborn, I think. So the idea is that this skull is coming, or right below it is the lotus plant. like rebirth. But then right below it is this image of Jesus with his like arms out kind of in the water. So just all these people and mediums that we don't usually get delivered. We're not used to receiving the Christian message delivered through them. But I think, from the people that I've talked to, like homeless people, other folks that we so easily discount from the Christian family, I feel like they have a better faith and trust than I do. They are going day to day on their trust that God will provide, whereas I have everything I need in front of me and don't have to rely. So just to the right of the homeless guy is this homeless lady. I was searching the internet for a good image to copy for her. And this lady was on a YouTube video. There was this guy who was pretending to be blind and asking people, whoever would come up to him, if they could tell him if he had a winning lottery ticket or not. And it was a winning lottery ticket, and he was just pretending to be blind. So the people who had it all together, who looked wealthy, a lot of them saw the ticket and said, "Oh no, it's not winning," and they'd take it away from him and go away. But this lady was a homeless lady, just loitering or whatever, hanging out in a parking lot, and she saw the lottery ticket, and the video showed her just being really kind to the blind person, saying, "Oh no, you won, go get your prize." Gives it back to him. And I was like, wow, isn't that the truth? Right next to her is a prostitute. Right behind her is the only one who has a closed Bible, and he's walking away. He's pushing the door, about to leave. He is the what I wanted to epitomize as the megachurch pastor. Not saying all megachurch pastors are that way. We're just so used to thinking that they are the most holy. But I just want to say, he may be the type that would be uncomfortable in this crew, sitting in this crew. And there's if we scan back to the left, there's an empty seat over there, and that's where go a little further. He used to be sitting at the table, and he got up from the table and is leaving because he's just not comfortable with this crowd. Okay, yeah, so stay right there real quick, please. So you see the one with the hat on, that's the cross-dressing alcoholic. That person has his hand out, welcoming us to sit in the chair next to him and saying, "Will you sit next to me? Will you be at this table with me?" He and the Jesus figure are the only two who are looking at the viewer in the eye. They're like, "Will you engage in this community, even though it's uncomfortable?" And if we look at like each of them, they each have a Bible in front of them of some sort. Like the one in the blue on the far right there has one sticking out of her pocket. That it's just the iPhone is open to the Bible app. That's as close as I could get for her. But the rest of them have some sort of Bible that's open in front of them, and the megachurch pastor has his closed under his arm as he's leaving. And stay there really quick. So I'll talk about the girl on the far right. She has a black eye, and I wanted her to be coming from a difficult home situation, and she's looking at the Barbie of the young girl next to her and is wanting to steal it. She wants a Barbie back because she hasn't ever had one, or she wants one. Now the prostitute though is looking at her. She's like glancing back to this girl, saying like, "I understand you. I've been there before." And this is part of the gospel. I think it's looking at someone who maybe doesn't know any better, or is just in a situation that's bigger than them, and saying, "I understand, and I still see the good in you, and I won't discount you from seeing Jesus in you." And then those two right there, the immigrants, maybe of a different religion, I'm not sure. Even they, in their situation, may have a stronger faith in God than I do. So I just wanted to say that these are the people who I think might be at the table if the Last Supper were today. Thanks, Paul. I see your comment. And it all takes place in McDonald's, because I think that it's hard for us to picture the Last Supper in a McDonald's because we think it is kind of maybe some holy place so far detached from us that we can't picture what the equivalent would be here and now. But this is the crossing ground of so many different cultures in America. McDonald's with fast food, signs in the back, Coca-Cola machine. Oh, how did your lectures in seminary respond to the provocative images and theology? They liked it. And by the time that class finished, I hadn't totally completed the image, so afterwards I finished it. But I think they really liked it. And this seminary specifically was very social justice oriented, and so they loved this type of thing. This is kind of one of their main focuses. Yeah, thanks for asking. Thanks, Paul. Any other questions? Thanks for asking about that, Raven. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. I really like that piece.
I like it too, and I like the I don't remember if it was this image or another image where you someone you had met in real life, you had yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Can you share that?
Okay, so there's a guy that goes to our church, and in the same way, he's a homeless guy named Twin. In the same way that I am doing sketch notes, and I'm like, cool, I'm giving something to my community by, exercising this creative skill that I have. This guy does live poetry. So like during the sermon, he's a homeless dude. He's like, pulls out his notebook and does live poetry. I don't, what I've read of it isn't like the highest quality or the stuff that all the hipsters like myself at my church would really appreciate. But it's like, you know what? He's giving what he has to the Lord in the same way that I'm giving what I have to the Lord. And so I took a picture of a bunch of his poetry all laid out on the stage of our church, and then took a picture of him and overlaid his picture with some filters over the top of that. And check this out, Raven. This guy in New York saw that on my Instagram feed, and he's putting together a homeless art event or like an art show in New York. And he reached out and he's like, hey, could I get your story and Twin's art can we put it in the art show? I was like, yeah, man, that's awesome. Wow. And I've been looking for an excuse to get up to New York. I think that's where Constance is. I think she lives near
She's
New
in
York,
DC.
DC. Yeah, maybe I'll come visit you, Constance. But I want to get up there anyways. I might move up there someday. I'd love to. And this might be a great opportunity. And I want to bring Twin up with me to go to the art show where his art will be featured. I haven't seen him at church lately, so I need to reach out to him and ask him if he's interested in it. But I would love to take Twin up to an art show featuring his art along with some other homeless artists. Wouldn't that be cool? In New York?
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm trying to find the image real quick. Okay, I found it. Let me share it so everyone can see.
Raven, this is awesome, by the way. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for doing this and for sharing your story with everyone.
So, yep, there it is. A lot of people, I think, thought it was drawn, but really I just did photos with filters on it. It looks that way. Oh yeah, it's kind of hard to, if someone wants to check out my Instagram feed, I would love to, we could follow each other. I'd love to dialogue over our art, about our art. But I forgot what I was going to say about this. It was just a photo with filters on it, overlaid with a picture of his poetry. I want to.
Is your Instagram handle your name or RAWSPOON?
Sorry. Yeah, and I should describe the difference. My name is Ross, ROSS, Boone, BOONE, and that's my Instagram handle. Yep. But my artist name sounds just like it on purpose. So it's Raw, RAW, Spoon, SPOON. And this is kind of for marketing because it adds an instant story that can be talked about. When someone talks about, hey, have you seen RAWSPOON art? He's the guy that does this thing with his name. His name is RAWSPOON, but his artist name is RAWSPOON. So like it just gives them, you know, a point to talk about, something to attach to my name that maybe might make it more memorable. So and it's worked well for me. People are like, oh, what do you do? Oh, let me see your art. Oh, really neat. Oh, that's your name. I've heard of you. You're the guy with the name. So it's a good technique if someone wants to do something similar. It's worked out okay for me.
And I just want to make sure that people know. I'm trying to put up. I'm typing at the same time. Okay. I just want to make sure that people know that in addition to all the illustrations that you see and you hearing Ross tell these stories, that he's also a blogger. So you need to follow him so you can hear these stories, because he's also a writer. And so if you think like just this is awesome, you should be following him and hearing the different stories that he's telling, because he's not just a storyteller with pictures, but with words as well.
Thanks, Jaden. I bet a lot of people on here have thought about doing kids' books because there's a lot of drawers out there like me. It's surprisingly easy. So if anybody wants tips on self-publishing, feel free to reach out and I'll give you the primer on it. But basically go to createspace.com. It's the, oh yeah, sure, about the iPhone cover. So createspace.com will get you to self-publishing books, but the Society 6 is the website where you can get stuff printed on all sorts of stuff. It's like amazing, and it's a little bit expensive, but it's still the best model I've seen. Sticker, oh, my laptop case, if I could take the face off this laptop and turn it around to look at itself, you'd see one of my pieces of art, thank you, there it is, on the back of this laptop. I feel like it's, so that's where I get my art printed and framed as well. They have like black frames and wood colored frames. There's limited size variations for the frame stuff, but still, you know, as an artist, I don't want to spend my time framing or the logistics of going to the post office to send things. But then people just, all you have to provide is a link, and the person goes and clicks the link, goes to Society 6, can order exactly what they want. A certain amount of the profits can go to you. You get to designate how much, especially for the printed art. I don't think I get to designate the profits for some of the items that's printed. It's like $3 or something for that sort of stuff.
All right. Well, I want to make sure, I mean, people are already asking questions. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Constance. If you have any more, put them up. I want to be respectful of Ross's time, because if you cannot tell, he's a busy man and he's got a lot of irons in the fire going on. If you want to get a hold of him, you can at rawspoon.com. And you can tag him in the comments to this video. Make sure you tag Ross Boone in the comments, and he'll see you. He'll see that you've left a comment for him. Ross, is there anything we didn't cover that you want to cover right now? I feel like every season we need to interview you just to catch up and figure out what's new and learn from you.
You did an awesome job of just covering all the stuff that I'm interested in sharing right now. I mean, if other people have questions about my stuff, please reach out. I'd love to describe it more, support other artists out there.
Cool. And next week, I think we'll be talking to Dominique Cedello, and he'll be talking about his sketchy advice from God and how he put that together. And it does seem like we should really put something together on publishing, because we are all constantly creating these information, and there have been a few people in our group that are self-published, like Marsha. She's self-published, and we just talked to, who did we just talk to? We just talked to Carol Ann, and she's published her own books as well. I still got a Kickstarter project that some of y'all backed that I've got to figure out how to publish, because I keep running into dead ends on it. But yeah, yay, Paul is definitely going to check you out, he says.
Cool. I gotta figure out how I can see these comments. Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, and Paul has a coloring book out that you can get on Amazon.
I want to do one
Yeah, that he did with the I was trying to look for my copy, but I've got so many books in here.
Thank you, Paul.
Cool.
Oh, so he asked about will my church sponsor the homeless guy to go up there. This is cool. The artist or the curator of the event is working the price of a plane ticket into the Kickstarter he's doing to get Twin up there. So that'll be cool.
Cool. Can you send me that link for the Kickstarter so I can attach it to this video and promote it inside of our Sermon Sketchnotes group?
Yeah, I'm not even positive it's up yet, but I'm gonna try to.
Okay.
Yeah, post it after. Afterwards.
All right. Sweet. Yes, Paul's coloring book is The Miracle Morning Art of Affirmations.
Oh, that's what he was posting. Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's his coloring book.
Cool.
But yes, you've showed us the story. You've created engagement. We're bought in now. So you have to tell us, Ross, how this all keeps going. Or you guys can go ahead and sign up for the RAWSPOON newsletter so you can find out as well.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, let's all stay in touch.
All right, sweet. All right, well, thank you, Ross. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Everybody, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Okay.
All right, bye.
Bye.